All right, welcome back to another episode with me. I am the Black opinionated woman, also known as a Bo. So I typically don't go live at this time, but school was delayed and then canceled, and I have a delay arrival at my job. So before I go to work, I'm going to actually take my children to their dental appointments since I have to be out for a certain period of time anyway. So okay, let's get right on into it. Anyway, so you guys saw the banner, right? So this is the topic. Am I a submissive wife? Let me bring up the banner real quick. For those of you who joined this or who clicked on this video, this is the thumbnail that you selected. I submit. I love a good cup of coffee. So now I do recognize that when I put these types of titles in these little quips, these little verbal quips up there, I see how it could be triggering. But anyway, so this is the thumbnail you selected to get into this video. So before I get into am I a submissive wife, let me just say, several years back, different people we were having, I don't remember what kind of conversation we were having, but different people had mentioned something to me, different times, different people. But one particularly stood out to me. Someone said, "You are the perfect submissive wife." Let me just say, when he said that, I was like, okay, now what does he mean by that? So, like, there's this biblical like submission, right? Where like you're not going out of your way to overtly resist your husband's will, right? You're not trying to openly, like overtly or anything, like go out of your way to resist, right? And there's more that goes into it. But he made that comment to me, like, you're the perfect submissive wife. Like, wait, what? What does that mean? And then a friend of mine who's quite wealthy mentioned something similar. Because what happened was when that comment was made to me, I went to him, I said, "Do you think I'm submissive?" He said, "Yeah." So it effed me up because I wasn't sure where people were coming from when they made that claim, me being submissive. Now, for those of you who know me, everyone knows that, I'm quite opinionated. But I never thought you could have submission and strong constitution about yourself, strong will, whatever, that can coexist. Coincide. I can't even, I was going to say coexist and then coincide. And somehow I made a portmanteau and said coexide. Um, yeah, take a look. Let me go back to this for a second. Now, let me just tell you about this thumbnail for a second before I get on into this. So I picked this somewhat glammed up picture, and this was made like several months back. My niece did some makeup on me, and we were just playing around, doing some girly type of stuff. So that's me in a little bit of makeup, and I chose that picture because oftentimes when you listen to people in a whacked out manosphere, they talk about how they want people who are feminine and stuff like that, which is why I stopped consuming that content. But femininity isn't just a look like makeup and that type of thing. Femininity, I've discussed this in previous videos, but it's not about wearing makeup and that type of thing. But nevertheless, I've had people more than one mention that I was a submissive wife. And so when I would question what they mean by that, and I got what they were saying. I'm going to bring up some women for a second. A while ago, several years back, someone had mentioned I was out at a tennis tournament, and there was a woman who I'm not really friends with anymore. She said, "Hey, I noticed that whenever your husband's ready to go, you leave." Now, I didn't give the full context of that conversation, but basically, it's like, wow, when your husband's ready, you go. Well, there are times when he's in the places where I'm like, I'm ready to go. And so usually when one or the other, when we are out, if somebody says we're ready to go, we usually give each other some grace, 5, 10, 20, 30%, whatever it is. Like, hey, whenever you're ready, I'm ready to go. And she was so surprised. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, why would I not? Why would I want to hold somebody here hostage? And not only that, he's not going to have me show up someplace where I can't enjoy myself and then leave after a couple minutes. But it was reasonable. It was after like 2 or 3 hours, actually. He was ready to go. Where am I going with this? Men out here claim they want a submissive wife. And let me tell you what comes with that. There is a responsibility on your end too. So, my husband gets a certain type of person, a certain type of woman, a wife, right? Well, for one, let me just say this. He's a provider, okay? Now, I make a good salary, but he's always made more than me. Hopefully, I might be able to surpass him. But he's always made more than me, a lot more than me. Um, so when you have someone in your life who wants to first, like, just provide. What happens is that's one less thing that's on your shoulder that you have to worry about. Let me bring myself up here. Let me take that off. He's a provider. So I don't have to hard charge it. There was a period of time when I was a stay at home mom, about 3 years. So when you're put in a position where that's not to say you don't ever worry or have concerns, but he was holding it down. He provided for the family. He wanted a family, well, I gave him a family. I popped out those babies. Like, right? Like when when someone is providing and you feel secure enough where you allow yourself to be vulnerable. Now, let me just tell you something. I want you to catch this for a second. My husband was a provider. So when I was comfortable, I allowed myself to be vulnerable and surrender my income, my source of what at that time what I would consider like a freedom, right? Because he provided. And I, in that moment, felt secure enough where I could do that. So when you talk about getting a submissive woman, there are things, there's a requirement. There's a huge responsibility on the person who's not being submissive. Okay. So when he had to go out and provide, and I was comfortable enough to stay home for those 3 years, well, you get a certain type of person. You can't possibly get a woman who's feminine and all these other things if she has to provide, if she has to protect, if she has to make all the decisions, if she has to be the confidant, if she has to rear the children and clean the house, if she has to do everything. This is the other thing. When he was providing not just financially, it was covering. Okay. Hold on a second. I need to yell at my child. Okay, I'm back. So, as I yelled at my child. So, this is the thing. He had to provide a level of covering, right? I had to feel secure, protected. He had to cover. And people need to catch this. When he provided the financial security, he also had to cover me. Now, granted, it's hard, right? Like relationships go through ups and downs, and I always used to being very independent. So I had to learn how to operate in that role for those 3 years I was a stay-at-home mom. But in that moment, I had to be covered. Well, you always have to provide covering. So a lot of these guys out here, they talk about wanting a submissive wife. I'm like, you're gonna get a different woman when she feels the ability to be vulnerable. If you want her to be submissive, should you choose to, like, have a stay-at-home mom, she's gotta feel secure, especially if you come from the environment where you were working on your own. No, you know what I mean, you were taking care of yourself. I had a sticky note with some notes on here, so now I gotta go off the cuff. So, okay, what did I say? He provided financially and he provided covering. So this is the other thing that I find interesting about these whacked out dudes out here. Talk about your accolades and all this other stuff like that. All right. So look, one of the things that was never an issue ever, ever was my education, or even when I was seeking other certifications. At one point, I think I had surpassed my husband in education and certifications. But so, like, when people talk about, like, oh, women getting this education, stuff like that, one of the things I said in previous videos was, hey, look, you need to understand the education and the certificates and the accolades, those don't give you your value, but you should value those things. And I say that because for women who may or may not be looking to get married, I don't know where you are in your relationship situation. When you have your education, well, they can't take it away from you, number one. Number two, it gives you access to other environments. That's not to say if you're not educated, you can't get access to other environments. I'm not saying that. But when people say, like, oh, you're out there chasing your education, blah, 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 I'm like, well, wait a second. Because I don't have anyone to provide financial and physical, emotional cover, I have to do those things. But anyway, let me just reel it back. So being with my husband. Now, I'm not saying we have a perfect marriage because on any given day, I'm like, what are we doing? Like, what are you doing? Right? I love that guy. But the thing is, it was never an issue for me to be educated and all this other stuff like that and chase my dreams. What I will say is there is a level of compromise because where we were then versus where we are now, where my kids are older, we're older, I'm like 45 and in my mind, fabulous. Um, you can't expect a woman to submit when what is up? I'm being like blown up right now. So like you can't expect a woman to submit, but then tell her you can't, get accolades, whatever. The thing that kills me about black men, because see, it's like it's weird because I love black men. Like, really, like we're adult culture. But black men and black women, we have blind spots. I think the thing that drives me crazy with black men, I had a conversation with somebody who wasn't black actually recently. And I want everyone who ever like watches this video to catch this. We make a lot of excuses. There's no reason in this country that you can't do something or make something of yourself. It doesn't mean, now, two things can be true. You can have the ability to do better, think better, achieve all these things, but also be affected by the institutions, all the racism in any of the institutions that are built around it. So those two things can be true at the same time. Nevertheless, there's no reason why you can't succeed. You may have to jump through some extra hoops. You may be polished up a little more. Your rock may be shinier because you've experienced certain things that other people haven't had to go through, but it doesn't mean you can't succeed. So when women, and I'm speaking specifically for black women, when we see our men not leveling up, it doesn't make us feel secure. So then you start thinking about like, how am I ever going to be covered? You know what? I'm about to hurt you. You are straight on trolling me. You want to come in? I have about 20 minutes. Let me see. I should probably drop that link. He said, can I get it? Wait, you know what? I am done with you. It's my buddy. Let me see if you can. I dropped that link in the stream. So anyway, I just wanted to say, women you'll get a certain type of woman when you allow them to submit. Like if you want them to submit, you've got to provide covering and be a provider and all these other things. So when they were like, well, you're the perfect submissive woman and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what the heck does that mean? I don't, I was like offended at first, but then I caught it. I remember the one time when my husband was trying to move me. This is when we were like, we love each other. We were like all into each other. And he had a home, I had a home and a rental property. And we were looking to combine homes and all kinds of stuff because we had properties just sitting around and we couldn't get it together. It was just like confusing. And I remember after we were committed to each other, we are gonna get married and stuff like that. He had to, I had to move stuff out of my house. I had rented it. Now I want you to catch this. This was interesting. We were moving out of my house. We are putting this house up for sale. We had to start, doing this systematically. When I was going to hire movers, and my husband was like, "No, I got it. You don't have to spend the money." Okay. I was like, "No, no, no," because I'm used to being moved. I'm like on some bougie kind of stuff. But he had his friends come to my house and pack me up. And they tore up some SHIT. Let me just tell you something. For those of you who don't know, I'm a prior officer from the United States Air Force, which means, well, it doesn't mean this, but I had lived. Oh, people keep calling me. People were, I'm losing my train of thought. Anyway, I'm a prior U.S. Air Force officer. So I lived overseas. I lived in Turkey. I lived in Germany. I traveled all over, and I had to move several times. So I'm used to being packed up. It's being neat and it's orderly. But my husband, he was just trying to like come in and be manly and help out and all these other things, which was great. And he and his friends tore up some stuff. Even he had his dad in on it. And I'm like, why is dad like moving stuff, jacking up stuff? And I sat there. At first, I was like, hey, guys, be careful. And then I said nothing. His friend came up to me, who was happened to be in a wedding, by the way. His friend came up to me and he looked at me. He goes, wow. And I'm looking at him like, wow, what? And he goes, I know this has to be hard because you have some really nice things. And now there's some things that are jacked up. But you never yelled at anybody and you were just really nice and everything. There's some other stuff in between, but I'm just making a point. I said, well, I'm not interested in yelling at him and blah blah blah. I mean, because he was really being helped. Now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't like a total bad job. It really wasn't, but it was just kind of like. So I'm sitting there, but anyway, the guy said, I know it's basically a stereotype, but he's like, most women would have yelled, or basically what he was getting at was emasculating, right? And I never did that. Let me reel this back in when we start talking about submission, because I think I'm getting off topic. The point I'm making with men wanting these submissive women, to get a submissive woman, because I forgot how I was going to tie that story into submission. It's probably going to hit me in a second. If you want a submissive woman, well, then there are requirements that come with it. What is a woman going to submit to if there's nothing to submit to? Are you of good character? Can you provide? Will you protect? Remember, women love and need and want all forms of security, that's financial, physical, sexual, emotional, educational, etc. We want security. And there will be people who will gaslight you into thinking that, like, how dare you want security? How dare you want a man of means? And what people need to understand, because they talk about women being so picky, and some people are quite unrealistic. But what I will say is this: women should be picky, because at the end of the day, if you choose to engage in certain relations, the woman is going to be more impacted by it. Like men to think, oh, it's just money coming out of my pocket. Is if you create a life. That's where their mindset is. I'm going to pay money. But it runs so much deeper than that. It's more than money. It's so much more. So women should be picky. And to my brothers out there, this whole like women getting educated thing, let me tell you something. That should be a sign. That should be a catalyst. That should be a sign to say, hey, you know what? If the women can go out and do it with all of the things that they had to face, all of the obstacles of maybe even being a single parent, why can't I level up? So I get tired of all this conversation about racism and institutions. And it could, because, like I said, two things can be true. Those things do exist, and it is going to make it harder for you to succeed, but it doesn't mean you can't succeed in this country. And most of the Black men I know have experienced some form of um, prejudice or racism or whatever. But there's no, it doesn't mean you can't level up. So if you want a submissive woman, there are requirements that come with that. You got to provide cover. You got to provide. You need to protect. There's those things. So anyway, am I a submissive woman? According to my friends, especially my male friends, apparently I am a submissive woman. I bet you guys didn't think that was gonna come out of my mouth. Um, I don't get into a whole lot of arguments with my husband. Occasionally, we'll say something like like a small bicker, like, "Oh, this is what we're doing. No, this is what we're doing." You know how that goes, right? But if you want a submissive woman, you got to do certain things. Let me tell you something. If my husband wasn't a provider, now granted, I provide too now because I'm not a stay-at-home mom anymore. And I'm gonna have another conversation about that in another video, the working mom versus stay-at-home mom. But let me tell you something. If I felt like I was unprotected, uncovered, lacking in financial stability, whatever, oh, you're gonna get a different woman. You're gonna get a totally different woman. So instead, this is funny. Yesterday I was home, I had to take a delivery for some furniture. And all I kept thinking about was, I hope this mattress works for my husband because he's been on the struggle bus with that jacked up back of his and that snoring situation, which he needs to go see a doctor because this is affecting my beauty sleep. But yeah, you're gonna get a different woman. If you are providing trust, most women, I say most, there's always some edge case out there. There's always a ding-a-ling. Most women are gonna make sure that you're like all the way good. All the way good. But anyway, yeah, I just think it's interesting. People are like, women need to be more submissive. Why? Why do they need to be more submissive? I'm not talking about the crazies. You want them to be submissive, but then you advocate basically the pumping and dumping of women. And then it's like now this woman is no longer useful because she's had a child. I'm just kind of like, so yes. Now, like I said, when I say being submissive, it's not like when my husband comes home and I'm like, yes, sir, right away. Because at the end of the day, I really run the house, right? Like, if he feels like his house is good, his children are good, everything is secure, yeah, it's all the way good. And for the record, I know CBR kid had to hop off. Can a brother just get a plate? Let me tell you something. I don't make my husband's plate. You want to know why? He doesn't want me making his plate. Oh, I see you. Oh, you are. What's up, trouble? I knew you were gonna pop in.
Uh, I'm on Asia's live stream. That's
Oh,
I just want to know if a brother can get a plate. That's all.
and you want to play? So
That's all a brother need is a plate.
I
Everything
think,
else will fall into place.
yeah, I think you heard most of what I was saying. It's so funny. So when I met my husband, and I remember we started cooking and everything, I was gonna make a plate for him. He was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I was just gonna make you a plate." He's like, "I get it, but I don't need you to make a plate for me." He does not like people making plates for him. Now I do on occasion, but he's like, "No, I'll make my own plate." He's like just really particular. I'm like, "I can make it the way you want." And he's just like, "No, leave me alone."
Oh wow.
How he is about it. Like, so it's funny. Like, I don't make his plates. I tried all that. He's just kind of like, it's like his thing. So it works out for me.
That's so
So
fun.
without people even knowing, it's funny if somebody were to ever say to me, like, "Do you even make your husband's plate?" If I want to be like cheeky, like have a tongue in cheek answer, or just talking, just be like, "No, I don't make his plate." I won't give any context.
Just leave it.
Just leave it there. Like, I'm not making his plate. Yeah, that's just
That's
because
funny.
literally he does not like people. Like he's just real particular. He's got some weird he's got some weird idiosyncrasies. Don't make my plate. Well, we don't have a whole bunch of clothing that you need to iron now. He doesn't want anybody ironing his clothes. But I don't iron clothes at all now, And there was another thing. He has like these interesting things about like my
Mm,
whole family is kind of like bougie about the bathroom situation. We all have our own separate. It's dysfunctional, but we need separate bathrooms because we have things. The point I'm getting at with my husband, and I'm sure similar to you or anything else, the real good men, they don't even care. Like if the woman wants to batter herself, whatever that means, they don't care.
knock yourself
Like, do
out.
you? And I just say the difference is those things don't determine your value, but they hold value. They
Mhm.
they they are
You said,
valuable.
you
And
said that.
most men, go ahead.
You've said that before.
Yeah, I'm like, but most men want you to do things because actually it helps the family unit, especially if you're building something together.
I was gonna
But
say we getting the dollars in the house up. Knock yourself out.
mhm.
It's
And it
all going
also
to the
takes
same pot. So
unnecessary pressure. Go ahead.
I said it's all going to the same pot, so what difference does it make?
I mean, it takes unnecessary pressure off the guy. I
Yeah,
mean, you would do it if you had to, but
sure.
not necessary, right? So anyway, people talk about this submission thing, and I didn't want to deep dive into the whole biblical thing because I don't want to like misrepresent how the Bible, interpretation. But I will say, like, I'm like, people go crazy. They're like,
No, I think it's the word that drives people crazy. I
yeah,
get, you know, and I guess in people's perception of what submission is
hmm
versus what it, made. Well, I mean, you covered it in the. I watched the whole thing, so you covered it in a live stream. But when people think submission, I think they think more like the maybe what that looks like in Asian culture, as opposed to what we may think, how we may do it, and like um, it's almost
and
like,
many Asians, and by the way, many Asians, I think they
or
think they're
I
all
should say
girls.
traditional Asian culture.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, and like I said, with this submission thing, I think people think it's like being subservient and inferior, and
Mm,
I'm like, no. I mean, because as you know, like I always have a lot to say, but what I know, but I don't come at my husband crazy either. Like he's
yeah,
pretty cool, but like, yeah, I'm not gonna try this dude either. I'm 5'6", he's 6'2". So, but I think the biggest thing is like you'll get a different woman when she comes home and she feels secure and safe and all these other things. When she's
mm,
not doing those things and she's got to wear the pants and the skirt and the thong or whatever it is, they're like, yeah, I can't. I'm not about that life. I'm like, I got to do.
you got to do if you got to do everything, you're in the wrong relationship, probably. That's a whole nother discussion about staying in the wrong relationship. But
I know. And for those of you who are listening, I'm talking about um me being a submissive wife and how my friends, particularly black male friends, they actually told me you're like the perfect submissive wife. And I was like, what does that mean? I mean, I know, but this was several years back. And I got that from somebody who was wealthy, someone who was middle class, etc. And it was interesting. The person who was wealthy, he said, that's what men want, especially when you're trying, and he does all kinds of stuff. He's like coinlicious. Like he's like, when you have a woman who gets it, it's not like I'm like, do this, do that. He's like, no, it's it's like I'm trying to provide, I'm trying to do these things. You want to be a team, not
right,
a doormat.
right.
So I had to explain before to people. I'm like, my husband used to travel, and I'll never forget the comment that was made to me. My husband would travel and leave me home with all these kids, 2, 3 weeks at a time. I'm like, I'm not about that life. And when he would come home, he would bring his luggage in, depending on if he, well, I never had to pick him up. He either had a service or he drove his own car. He would drop his luggage off at the door because the rule was, don't you take that upstairs and bring some like cootie into my house. And I would take out the clothes and wash them. And someone made the comment to me, you're doing his laundry? I was like, whoa, why would I not do his laundry? They were like, he can do his own laundry. And I'm like, this is why you're not married. I said, number one, we're a team, we're a partnership. He's out here flying all around the world so I can be the bougie person that I am. I was living nicely and everything. I got 500 kids and I can't do his laundry. He's had to come back from Japan or Thailand or whatever. And then
Mm,
he's on a different time zone. And then sometimes he's always bringing me gifts or something for the children. But the point I was making was, I can't do his laundry, especially since I'm the one who had the requirement. Don't you take that upstairs. You are not giving us the cooties. And I'm
right.
like, I wanted to do his laundry, not because I want to be a maid, because you guys know I'm not really about any of this stay-at-home mom stuff. I just wasn't that good at it. But
Mm,
I'm like, why would you not do that? It doesn't make me subservient. I just wanted to take care of him. I wanted to love up on this man because he put me in a situation where I felt secure, I felt comfortable, and he was providing and he was giving me cover.
Hold on, give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
Sure. Anyway, I'm not gonna be here long anyway. Once he returns, I'm gonna have to get off because I've got about 5 minutes, and then I gotta get my kids out the door for a dental appointment. But I think the biggest thing is for anybody who's watching, if you want a submissive woman, there are requirements that come with submission. You need to provide. You can't sit there and say women are not providing. I can't believe they're getting all this education. I'm like, you're a ding dong. Getting the education gives you the opportunity to meet other people, enter into other spaces, and actually help build generational wealth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As long as you do it smartly. And there's a whole bunch of things we can get into about people who are getting these crazy degrees, but they don't have the ROI, return on investment. I just think that men need to stop going crazy over the submission thing. And they should want their women to, if it's a PhD or whatever their gig is, you want them to be the best version of themselves. It helps the family.
Yeah. So I don't think men necessarily don't want that. I think what they don't want, and some women are guilty of it. Well, I got this, I got that, I did, and they want to throw it in that man's face as if, okay, what does that mean? I mean, my wife doesn't do that to me. I mean, she has a master's, I don't, but she doesn't do that. She doesn't do that to me. But it's like for guys who go through that, I'm like, I was doing fine without your ass. I don't need to hear about that.
Yeah.
I'm happy for you, but that's not why I'm with you. So why you throwing that? I would
Yeah.
imagine that would be the thought process. But
I think you really hit the nail on the head, because a lot of people, I think, like I said, that pendulum shift, I'm not sure what video, or maybe it was a podcast. I said there was a pendulum shift where women had to do all these things, Black women in particular.
mhm,
Now, when you try to come back to the center, it becomes so hard, because they're like, wait a second, this would require me to be more vulnerable, because
mhm,
many men are not allowed them to do that. I just feel like if you want them to be vulnerable, submissive, and feminine, there's requirements that come with it.
yeah,
And now let me just say this. I am biased because obviously I'm in a white collar job, you're in a white collar job. And I think as soon as they open up our buildings, you and I are going to be like, wait a second, I'm going to go,
yeah,
whatever, right? I think the biggest thing is, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to like beat it too much. Women do those things. I think it was because they were forced to do it, and now when you try to bring them back towards the center, they don't know how to get back to the center. And then men, it's like, because of, I do think a lot of it is because of the effects of white supremacy. They have no power. They don't own anything. They don't own any infrastructure. They don't own anything, and they are discriminated against. But like I say, two things can be true. All those things can be true, but it still doesn't mean you can't do great things. But right now, I think it's just like the
well,
perception
you
women
know,
are.
I'm thinking you don't want to get it from both sides, right? If I'm out there in the world, I'm fighting all that stuff, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Don't want to come home and then get beat up by her too.
Yeah,
So that's really what it boils down to. I think, for some people.
there's
Fortunately, I'm fortunate I don't have to deal with that, but some
yeah,
guys do. You know.
yeah. I think the people who come home, I'm sorry, women who do those things, there's something going on with them, right? It could be past traumas and how you grew up, whatever. But I just feel like I was supposed to come on a recap, and just like that episode 8, I think I'll probably do that tonight.
I
Because we,
got no skin in that game.
oh yeah, I know. Right? I took all the notes, I created the slides and everything. I was gonna come on and do this live and recap that. And then at the last second, I was like, no, I'm gonna talk about, am I a submissive wife? And so I was explaining earlier, I was like, look, apparently I am a submissive wife. You know, I am going to support my husband, but believe it or not, my husband still supports me.
Sure.
Probably not the way I want, because we always have a reason like, oh, why didn't you? He'll be like, girl. But well, he doesn't say girl, that's not, but that's what I would say. But I think yeah, that's just where I'm at with it. I'm like, if you want a submissive wife, provide.
Yeah.
Provide covering, provide finances. And this doesn't mean you have to be a millionaire,
Right.
but she has to be secure, feel secure,
Yeah.
safe,
It's
sexual, physical, financial.
yeah. It's funny because it's simple, but it's complicated. Uh-oh.
No, I did that.
Oh, I was like, what happened? Okay. No, I
Mhm.
mean, it's simple, but it's complicated because it's like you hear all of that, and then you hear from the other side, hey, look, if you're going into this and you got any level of assets, you got this, you got that, better make her sign that paperwork because you never know what's going to happen, that kind of deal. So
It
you
is
get
what it is, right?
so you get that attitude coming into it. And from the other side, You may get look. You can never depend on somebody else to do that. So you need to handle your bit. So the concept is simple. The execution seems a lot more difficult and a lot more complicated. Um, I don't know. It's just maybe it's the way people have changed over time. Um, I really don't know because it seemed a lot simpler to do in generations past, but the mentality's changed in generations present. So
Mm, I hear
for
you. I
for
had to
those who are trying to get there, good luck.
I just put that comment back up there real quick because I figured I need to re-troll you because I was cracking up, like you.
Hey, that's half the battle right there.
Hey, you get a plate. Hey, I'm sure you can get a plate. My husband won't let
Yeah,
me touch his plate. He's like,
yeah,
"Come
that's half the battle.
on." But
I don't
anyway,
care if you buy it, if you cook it, just let a brother get a plate. That's all.
that's right. But like I said, this submission thing is deep. But I'm just kind of like, I think these men out here are losing it. Like this whole rhetoric around getting a submissive women and all sorts of stuff like that. I'm like, and look, women need to like calm the heck down too because there is a warped sense of self as far as I have all this education. It now means I'm everything and better.
Mm. So, I was going to say that earlier is and even from the beginning, before we even get to that point, right? A lot of women like you leading with your resume. I don't
Yep.
care about I don't care about your resume.
Yeah.
I don't even know. It's like I don't even know you. So I want to know you. Forget your resume. I don't care about your resume.
And I think that's really important to call that out too, because, people mistake valuing their accomplishments and accolades and everything for those things giving them value. And then it's like, because I think black women have been hurt, it's almost as if they want to wield their success or accomplishments as some sort of weapon.
Well,
Well,
it's different marketplaces, right? So it does give you value in a specific marketplace, but in the relationship marketplace, that's not what I'm not going to lead with. Hey, I got a PhD and I did this and I did that. Okay, that's great. Well, who are you?
yeah, yeah.
And
Well,
that's what I want to know first before I know about your career accomplishments or your education accomplishments. We'll get to that.
yeah,
But before we get there, I need to, if I even want to go on a second date with you, if I even like,
I
so
hear you on that. Well, I will say this too. I don't know. I think black men and black women, there's so much love there. We just can't get along right now. I don't like to participate in all the shenanigans out there. I'm like, y'all just fight amongst yourself. And let me just say this, and then I'm gonna hop off because I gotta run my kids to the dentist. I gotta get out of here in a couple minutes. This whole divesting thing, I don't advocate per se divesting, even though I may use the word. That's not really what I mean. But I do believe if you meet somebody who does, m- if you meet somebody who's gonna rock for you, who doesn't look like you, who's gonna take care of you, all these other things, do it. Life is short.
yeah,
Go.
and
Like interracial dating isn't bad. It's just
mm,
there's some bad apples out there, but
sure, that's just goes without saying. But yeah, like you said, if you meet that person that does it for you, you know it right away. So
mhm.
hopefully the person that does it for you is not a knucklehead. But but
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. Maybe I need to redo my another video on if you're going to date out or whatever. These are the things. I got to run shortly, but definitely. I know I keep saying we're going to do this panel. For those of you who don't know, I was supposed to do something for 2 weeks now, and the title was going to be like Black culture's obsession with the table, because we're always talking about bring something to the table. I just can't get it together. Maybe I'll pop off with that this week. I'll let you know. All right, look, I gotta run. I'll hit you up whenever I get to work. If I even get
yeah,
home.
me too.
Are you
All
going?
right. Yeah, I'm going. I'm
Yeah,
not staying. I'll give them about 4 to 5 hours, but that's about it.
that's about all I'm probably gonna
They,
do. Look,
they've already
step on.
screwed up my plans for the day.
I know. I was able to get. If I had gone in at a normal time, I was going to take off early and get my kids to the dentist. But they said bring them in early, so I'm probably only going to get 4 hours
Yeah,
today. Get some
yeah.
things out. But all right. So look, I'm getting ready to sign off of here. I'll catch up with you. Thanks for jumping on. And
Later.
all right, Black opinionated woman. Wait, where's my thing? Out.